Good, good, good. Thanks for having you on the show. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you here. So we'll just start with, this very, very important question. Now we hear that the economy is doing well. Oftentimes we speak about it, our GDP is doing well, our foreign reserves are doing well. But at the end of the day, we understand the importance of security. In as much as we're talking about the good things that are happening in the economy, oftentimes we're also speaking about bandits attacking a particular place or the other. We saw what happened in KB. We saw what happened in the church as well. And we wonder, if we want to celebrate our economic wins, how can we do that if we're battling with serious insecurity? We also know that for every economy to grow and be stable, the country needs to be secured. So when you're putting these two together, how well are we making sure that we secure our people first? Because we talk about farmers. The farmers are even scared to go to farm because they're scared about what will happen to them. Food security, we're not doing so well with that. So just putting it to you, how can we make sure that our security can do well to finally match with what we're doing with the economy?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity, and good morning to your viewers. Indeed, you're right that Nigeria economy is on much firmer grounds than it has ever been in the last 10 years. We've experienced 3.19% on real terms year-on-year GDP growth as of the last data. We've seen the Naira strengthening. We've seen inflation come down as the last about 16. Should be at below 15% at the end of the year. We've seen an improving balance of payments. That means Nigeria's export on the back of the Dangote refinery inauguration and improvement of Nigeria's overall economy grew while our imports have relatively shrunk, meaning that our trade surplus has continued to rise. So overall, the economy has experienced a very strong growth in the last 24 months. However, it could be better, and that's to the point of what you're making, that we continue to experience strong headwinds in other areas that is limiting this growth and the nature of this growth. For example, we know by nature of the insecurity, which, by the way, the structural insecurity in the economy, we need to define it better. I think we talk about insecurity, but it's important that when we are discussing this topic, we throw a light on the nature of insecurity. First and foremost, we have transnational terrorism and insecurity. These are insecurity that's occasioned by the nature of the region that we find ourselves, the Sahel, which is quite hot right now. We have issues on our northeastern border. We have transnational terrorism. Also on our
All right, sir, are you still with us? Okay, I think he's having network issues. All right, just before I'm sure we'll get him back on, we'll fix it. Mr. Biodun, we're still speaking about the fact that if we want our economy to be strong, we also need to look at the insecurity we're facing. And I was just speaking to him, how are we able to now match it? We're boasting that, we're doing well with the economy, and we see that we're doing well. But how about insecurity? Mr. Biodun?
Well, I think he was making a very important point on transnational terrorism, referring basically to the cross-border terrorism, the ISWAP, the Boko Haram issue is there, and then the way they are mutating into different forms. At times people tend to forget the fact that when you talk about kidnapping, it's not just criminal elements within the country doing that. It's also the terrorists who are also doing that, because terrorism mutates in different forms. You will notice a coincidence. We used to have armed robbery a lot, and suddenly armed robbers robbing the bank, it's gone down suddenly, and then we now see the rise of kidnapping. Is it about, terrorists mutating, from insurgency into something else in order to finance their own objectives? So we still don't know. There's no clear evidence, but at least there are indicators suggesting that maybe this is terrorism, mutating into different forms. So, and that is quite very important, because it's not only about tackling the terrorism within, but also look at, the other neighboring countries. And this is where the issue of Niger is very important, and what Nigeria just did recently in relation to Benin Republic, because we already have a problem in the northern end with Niger Republic not all that cooperating with Nigeria any longer. We have problems in Cameroon, and nobody will want another problem in the western part of the country. So That is good. So, but at the end of the day, we still have to tackle those who are within the country, whether the organized criminal elements or the freelancers or the organized terrorism within the country. And that's important, you know, for the economy.
Yeah, but Olamide, before even our guest joins us, I'm going to come to you with this particular one. You know, we speak about the fact that we want foreign investors to come and invest. But if we are facing this kind of insecurity, how do we now tell them that, yes, you can come and invest and your money will be safe?
You cannot tell them that with your mouth. The data needs to reflect that. We need to reflect that. The storytelling and the narratives need to change of the average common man who is suffering from insecurity in the rural areas, in the forest. The story needs to change and the narrative needs to change. But very interesting choice of words there, Mr. Showomi. You said that these terrorists are mutating, and it makes me think about the concepts of parasites, right? They constantly evolved until they get to a point that they kill their host. When we look at COVID, what did we do to the COVID parasite or the COVID virus? We quarantined it, and we made sure it was inaccessible to us. And this is what needs to happen in terms of transnational terrorism. We need to quarantine ourselves, close our borders, because these terrorists are essentially parasites, and they're morphing to become more powerful until they kill the host.
I think Mr. Michael is back. Mr. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Sorry about
all right,
that.
perfect. No, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, yeah. So I think I lost you when I was trying to define the structure of the insecurity that we're experiencing in the country. I then moved to the rural areas, and that's which is of most concern right now, because traditionally, the current insecurity we're experiencing in the rural areas, especially of kidnapping and banditry, is something that has risen significantly of recent. This is occasioned by primarily banditry, but also age-long internal schism, ethnic crises, herdsman farmers clashes. In the south, you have the issues in the southeast around IPOP, and also in the south around the Niger Delta. These are issues that have continued to grow over the years. As we return back to democracy, we've continued to experience increasing levels of insecurity in our rural areas, which have reduced the ability of our rural areas to be habitable and to be production engines for our economy, and has also now led to a massive rural urban drift. And then lastly, of course, because the border area is under pressure, the rural areas is increasingly inhabitable. The urban area is now receiving the shock of movements of people and the increase in urban crimes. If you go to Abuja, if you go to Lagos, if you go to Port Harcourt, if you go to our major capital cities, there's an increase in urban crimes that we don't talk about. In Abuja, for example, we have seen an increment in attacks when you are on a walk within a neighborhood because of the IDPs and the people that have been dislocated to Abuja who don't have anywhere to stay. We have issues of along and the one chance in vehicles. We've had increases in just social unrest and crimes in our major cities because of all of this. So this is the real structure of insecurity in the last 30 years. And we must understand that each of these structures have different responses, because otherwise, if we don't diagnose the problem well, then we cannot deal with the issues appropriately. It is not about just saying insecurity generally. Terrorism, transnational terrorism, can be dealt with with the military. But when you talk about rural terrorism, you need combined forces. And then when you talk, it's police. So you must be able to disaggregate and understand the structure. Now, talking about the cost. The cost has been massive. We're talking about that has lost about 80,000 people, according to some accounts, in the last 10 years. This is about, when we do the estimate, this is about $12 to $24 billion in real lifetime cost in terms of the productivity of a Nigerian. So we are losing about $12 to $24 billion in GDP contribution, in productivity contributions. GDP productivity loss is about $4.4 to $5.2 billion. In terms of tax and household income loss, of these 80,000 people, we're not even talking about the people that maybe moved and jackpot because of them, that died. You now have another $5 to $6 billion loss. We're not even talking about those that are injured, right? They reduce productivity because you're injured and you're part of some kind of banditry attack, some kind of urban attacks, or even the transnational terrorism attacks. Yeah. Then in terms of to our economy, we are also spending more on security, money that could have been spent on education, on health. We're spending about $10 to $15 billion more. And overall, the worst one is the investment and economic drag, people, investors are making choices and saying Nigeria is unsafe. It may not be true because, right, there are pockets of safety across the country, and these areas are still quite investable. But we are losing it because we are losing the narrative.
That's
and
right.
that's about $30 to $50 billion in the last 10 years. This is the real cost, just in 10 years cost I've just given you. Combined, you're talking about anything from $60 to $70 billion when you add all of these numbers together of costs of this insecurity. So there's a need for us to deal with it, but there's a need for us to understand the structure of the insecurity so that we can tackle it and we can get the best results for Nigeria.
Exactly. Mr.